everybody, this is Liz from Augusta, and today, look, I don't have anybody beside me. It's my invisible partner. You know why? Because you get to listen to Liz ramble today. So, welcome to Augusta. That's my little line that I say to all of those who walk in the door at Augusta. So, as you saw on my thumbnail, it was just clickbait, what's my life like working with Michael Andes? And I will tell you about that. But first of all, some of you asked me a lot of questions in our times together when we're with Mike or text or anything like that, and ask a few questions about me. So I'm a little nobody, but I'll share what I have and have experienced. And so a couple different things that people have asked is kind of my workout routine and eating routine. And as always, there's seasons of life where we mix it up and do lots of different things. For its anti-inflammatory properties, I did keto for about 7 years, and I actually gave Mike $200, and it was in November of all things, right before Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I told him that he had to keep the $200 if I ate any sugar for the entire month of November. It about killed me, I'm telling you. To detox off sugar is basically like coming off a hard drug. They say that sugar does to your brain what cocaine does. And oh man, did I find out. So I went the entire month, no sugar. And believe me, sugar's in everything, I found out. And so then I started on the road to keto and cut out all quinoa, rice, bread, potatoes, anything like that, oats. Took all of those out and ate meat, nuts, veggies, sometimes fruit, but it does have some sugar properties in it as well. So I did that, and that made me feel really good, kept me from feeling bloated and fat, as we all hate to feel. But just for optimal health, and an anti-inflammatory diet also helps your brain. And so that was a reason I did that too. I had some issues with anxiety, and what you eat and what comes into your gut really affects your brain. So that was able to help me staying on anti-inflammatory diet. So once it becomes a lifestyle, then you get used to it. So I've recently, probably last November, fell off the bandwagon right before Thanksgiving. So once you have a taste of it again, it's like starting all over again. It's like a major relapse. So through the holidays, I had just ate normal, the bread, all the yummy things at Thanksgiving, and the desserts. And it's been a bit of a challenge to get back on the keto bandwagon. I typically eat pretty clean. So trying to do no sugar again. What I want to do, and I'm going to say what you should do, it is helpful if you just want to try things that I've tried that do work. It's like starting all over and like being addicted to a hard drug to come off sugar. And when you tell yourself you can't have something, you want it all the more. So what I found happened before is it was hell at first. And I denied myself so long that I actually forgot what the stuff tastes like. So like right now you might claim like salty things like fries or something. And or maybe you just love ice cream. And when you think like start craving something, it's that thing that you want. But imagine if you forgot what it even tasted like, then how could you even have a craving? So that's what I found happened before. So that's what I'm trying to do now, is cut out all the sugar and make it through the horrible cravings. It is crazy. And you can be the toughest person and the most disciplined, and it's pretty hard to do. So that's what I've started to do again. And something that I took for years in a tablet was super greens. And now I have gone to athletic greens, but I did superfoods for many years because it was just a lot cheaper. So I would take the powder and drink it in water, and it was very chalky and gross, but I didn't care because it was good for me. And then they actually had a supplement that was all the greens, and I took that. And I've heard so much about athletic greens, but it's so expensive. But I did bite the bullet and I bought it. And it came in a presentation. If you order anything from Apple, it comes as a beautiful presentation. And so it was in a box like this wide. And then inside the box, it had this plastic bottle, Athletic Greens 1 says on here. And it's a thick plastic. and a nice top on it. And that came in a nice form in this big box. And then there was this nice canister, and I'm smelling it. One thing that I noticed that was really interesting is there was a lot of powder, and it came in a big bag, and the powder, as I dumped it in, I mean like residue of the powder coming up. That's how fine it is. And this is full of vitamins and minerals, all green stuff. And it is not bad to drink by itself. So I actually put it in here with water, like half full of water, and shake it up, and I can drink it straight. Although I typically have been doing a cup of blueberries, a cup of almond milk, this, and a cup of a low carb, no carb protein powder, which I think it might be IsoPure that I'm using now. Another awesome thing is they come in packets, athletic greens, and these are great to throw in your workout bag or in your lunch bag to go to work. If you're like me and you don't have a lot of time, you can just throw this in some ice water and shake it up and drink it. It's a little bit of like a lemony, earthy taste. It is not horrible like the superfoods. And this is a little more expensive. It's an investment in your health. Some people do a subscription, and so it's expensive. So like $80 a month or something. But if you're using that, I use it as a meal in the morning. I take it straight with water before I head out the door and have it with my vitamins and things. So highly recommend this. I've enjoyed using it so far, feel good on it. And the nice thing is it doesn't taste too gross. I'm usually a proponent. If it's good for me, I don't care how it tastes. So a couple other questions that have come in. Some people asked me if I've made a change. They've seen some of my background here. And I used to sleep like you hear Mike does. He slept on a mattress for a long time in his closet, lived very humble. All the money that he made, he poured back into Augusta. And so my story is quite a bit different. So I had a custom built home and a lot of nice things. And then I had a divorce about 10 years ago, and I ended up losing all the stuff I owned, and except my kids, which are the most valuable thing. And so it was a very traumatic event in my life. And when you go through things like that, sometimes you feel kind of worthless. And so I was in this really weird mentality where I thought that I didn't deserve anything nice. And so I would do crazy things like park in front of garbage cans. And I remember my kids saying, "Can't you park somewhere else?" And I would say, "Well, when I don't feel like garbage, I'll park somewhere else." And I sold or gave away or threw away absolutely everything I owned. So I got a mattress, and I moved into a little studio that was 200 square feet, no washer and dryer, no dishwasher, no oven, nothing, just very small. And it worked for me. I threw all my clothes in little bins and just labeled them. And it was so tiny. And so I couldn't really buy anything else, but it didn't matter because I didn't think very highly of myself. So I thought that that's all I deserved and that I didn't deserve anything nice. So I did that for 3 years, I think. And then just last year, this year, sorry, this is the end of July. And I believe it was March or April of this year that I moved into a little bit of a nicer place. And it was this building that had just been built, and it holds 171 units. And I was the third person to move in. So out of this gigantic place, I got to choose where I wanted. And there's a really nice yoga room. So I was able to cancel my Anytime Fitness membership. And I can walk straight out my door and straight into the yoga room, which has all kinds of bands and video monitor on the screen that you can use and do their video workouts. And then right around the corner is a gym. And all of this is in my house, so it feels like it's my personal stuff. It's not in my house. I tease my grandchildren that it's my mansion. But there's a nice sitting area. The place I'm in has 1 bedroom, and it's super nice. I really like it and have a better self-image these days. So it's nice to have a little something to come home to. And I have a lot of empathy for people that went through what I did. And I have like a beach theme. So this pillow says, "Stay anchored." And this pillow says, "Seize the day." And so they're kind of fun things, teal, turquoise, kind of a beach theme. And it's been really special, and I'm very grateful. What else did I want to share with you? There were other questions that came in, the workouts. Yeah, sorry. So I've always done a lot of different things, but currently during the week, I try to do 30 minutes of cardio and then 2 body parts lifting to failure, as heavy as I can go. And that's all the time I have for. I have to get up at 3 a.m. to even get that in. So I do that in the morning before I go to work. If I don't have time in the morning, just can't drag my head out of bed at 3, then I do it when I get off work in the afternoon. So Augusta is very important to me. The team is very important to me. And I try to take care of myself so I can take care of all the people. So any kind of cardio I want to do, just something steady state for 30 minutes. And then on the weekend, I do something that's longer. So I usually hike a mountain every weekend, do a hike, something that you can't just turn around and come back. Once you get to the top, you got to come back. So it's a weird, twisted way of making myself do long workouts, because if I go to the top, what goes up must come down. So I got to make it to the top, which it's a very difficult hike that I typically do. And this past weekend, I drove over to Winthrop and was able to see the most incredible thing along the way, and it's glacier water. So there's several dams, but the glacier water that comes from the mountains comes out as a beautiful turquoise and creates lakes, and it is so phenomenal. It's actually a silt that creates the aqua kind of color, and there's lakes that are just like glass, like turquoise glass, and they're very beautiful. So the weather here's been nice, and so it was a lovely drive there and great to see. It was so hot over there. All you people all over the place, we've had some beautiful weather here, and it normally doesn't get very warm. But over there, it was 100 degrees and no humidity, though. So it was really nice. It was just nice to pop over, see all the incredible scenery, get a new view on life, and head back. So let me see. What else do I want to share with you? My book is coming along well. All the parts I have to do, just finish the epilogue, and everything's done. It's just in their hands for the moment to finish doing the edits that I want. And then, of course, I'm tweaking the edits. I told you that this whole process is why I'm doing it, just to learn to write a book. But some of the things that crack me up is the different editors. I don't think that they all, of course, speak English or have good English speaking skills. Because when they edit, I still have to go back and edit again, because they say funny things like, for instance, instead of a shirt, they might put tunic or some other word and replace it, trying to help out by making it more creative. And that wasn't the word. It wasn't tunic, but it was another word that we wouldn't use in the US usually in our kind of speak. And so there's other funny things like that, and I have to switch them back. Or there's this one line that I always joke about, that life is hard and then you die. And then I have that in this book on this one section I'm talking about, and they don't understand that and how somebody could write something so negative. So they wrote like, life is difficult. So they're not about to. So I finally had to tell them, please stop changing this. This is an actual quote that I quote all the time. So life is hard and then you die. And then I go into this part about, yes, that it's morbid and like, make it not so heavy, but that's kind of funny. So the book is coming along good. A couple frustrating parts about it, and that's okay. Nothing ever works as fast as we want. And of course, I would like to have it already done and already printed. But, we deal with humans, and I'm just trying to butter them up and keep them motivated and work along till we can get it done. I do want to do an Audible, and that's what most of you would want. And so as soon as I can get the completed manuscript, then I'll get a studio and I'll record the Audible. They have a lot of requirements. I think it's like 12 to 15 requirements that have to be met to be able to do an Audible. So I think that's good. And the learning process is really good also. So life, working with Mike. It's been a wild ride, and we all change and grow and get more mature and go through seasons of life. But we started when it was nothing. We slugged it out all day long, 12 to 14 hours. That was our life. And I remember, I remember somebody saying, "Are we going to work the holiday?" And I'm like, "When's the holiday?" And it was like right before Memorial Day or something. And they were asking if we were going to work. And Mike and I, we started laughing. We had no idea it was a holiday. And of course we work holidays. So it was just another day for us, and we didn't know the difference. That's what we do. So that was pretty funny. We've had to become a lot more mindful of people that don't quite operate like we do. So that's been a challenge. I can share a little bit more about my role and how it's changing, but it's been awesome to work with him. I am his aunt, actually, and a lot of our employees don't even know that for quite a while when they work for us, and we don't really feel it's necessary information to share. We're very professional, and we don't talk about family stuff, and we don't talk about family like we're there to work. We're there to give them time and attention and not bring any sort of attention to us. And it's also good because if people need to come and talk to me about him, they feel free to, and vice versa. So if they have a problem with me, they can go to Mike, and they can feel like they can reach out to either of us about the other. So that's pretty cool. It's been awesome because we are family, and yet you couldn't work with a lot of members of your family, but for us, it's worked pretty well. We think a lot the same, and yet we know our roles now. So it's pretty bumpy for a while. At first, it's pretty good because you're working super hard, and the entrepreneur is just calling all the shots, and you're just doing everything they want, and you're just in this frantic, all out, pedal to the metal, head to the wall, like going like with blinders. And that's the way it was for us. And we've worked really hard that way for all these years. But in the beginning, he's just calling the shots and we're just going for it. As the business progresses, though, I begin to understand the business more. I'm working the office. He's doing estimates and sales and helping with the crews and all that. We're buying new equipment. So we start to do different stuff. Because you have to take your position after a while, and you have to like divide up everything you do, which is what he had to do, and then hand off stuff to me, and I would take over those roles. So one thing that has worked really well and is very successful for us, and some of you have heard me speak about it before, is once he would take a role from me, he would never take it back, or like once I would take a role from him, sorry. So for instance, phone calls. So a lot of you talk to your customers on the phone, on your cell phone. And what we found to make the transition to train the customers was that he just stopped using his cell phone. So if a number called that he didn't recognize, he didn't answer it. And if a customer left a message, he would then say, "Hey, Mr. Smith just called my cell phone. Can you call him back?" And this is what he wanted. Then I would call Mr. Sniff. I'd call Mr. Smith, and I would say to him, "I am really the best person that can help you the fastest, so please call the office." And that same person would have to be trained several times before they got the hint and realized that I'm going to be way better and faster at helping because Mike is doing different things. The other thing that's really challenging with that, though, is that the customer will suddenly be upset because it's Mike they want and Mike they demand, and Mike's the only other person they've known. Well, as you can imagine, that just gets impossible as a company grows. And so one lady, she came in, she's like, "I'm sure you're a really wonderful person, but it's got to be Mike. He's the only one that understands my property and all this." And she's in her little yoga outfit because she had just come from the gym, and she's trying to tell me this. And I'm like, "Well, Mike's not going to be available, and I can help you. I'm the best person to help you. I can help you the fastest and just as thoroughly." So she didn't really like that. But after a while, then she got really used to me. And as it always is, then I pass it down to somebody else, and she says the same thing. She's got to have Liz. So it's very important that once you pass something off, that you don't take it back again. So he never used his cell phone again to deal with customers. Another big thing is when he handed off the emails to me, he never went back into the emails again and sent out emails to customers with his signature. It actually happened once, sorry. And as soon as you do that, as soon as he would email the customer again, they're like, "Oh, yeah, now I have a connection to Mike again." And that was only one customer. And it took us a little bit to reorient that customer back to, he's just telling me what to say. And now I'm emailing. So we would stand beside each other and go over something and decide what we were going to say to the customer. But I'm the one who typed it and I'm the one who put my signature on. So that is very important, that once you hand off something to somebody else, that you don't take it back. So I made a lot of mistakes and I said things that were wrong in the customers, as I learned the business and everything. But one thing about him, he's very, I wouldn't say the word is patient, but very forgiving. Like, he knew that I was trying my very best to do something. It wasn't like I was like, oh, too bad. That I did it the way I thought it should be done and was trying to help him and that my motives were good. And so he would be like, no, that's not how you do it. Or he'd go, slow down, Tiger. And that would be, if he said that, I knew that I was just about to mess up something big. And then he would say, no, it has to be done like this. And this is why. And so as the business grew, I was able to get really confident in my position and in my role. And so dividing those up was really important. Other really big ones, when we handed off, were times, and we found this in our other businesses, which I can tell you about. But it would be like we would both collide because we were both trying to do a certain role. So for instance, I had all the crew out and they were all wrapping up for the day, and it's like shifting everybody. So-and-so is going to go do this delivery. So-and-so is going to go take the this tool that we rented back to the shop, back to the rental place. And we'd had all these moving parts, and I had it all figured out. Who was going to go back to the rental place, who was going to go do the delivery, the guys that were doing the mowing routes who had just come back, who was going to go help somebody finish the job. And he came in and like drove up in his truck, had been doing estimates or out somewhere doing something else. And he drove up and he's like, oh, Austin, you do that. And so do that. And, like just saw kind of what was going on and then started directing, because that's what he had always done. My personality is just kind of back off. And one of the guys looked at him and they're like, she had it. Like, it was a good plan. And so that was one of those times where we were both trying to help. And so that's going to happen for a while when you're trying to hand roles off to somebody else. What's another time that was really important? Stepping on, when we started the Airbnbs. So when you start a new business together, you're trying to figure out everything, put systems, automations, all those kind of things in order. Then you start advertising, you start getting tenants, guests, and you get your process down. Well, until you do get your process down, there's a lot of little things to figure out together. Let's say you had to refund somebody. Let's say just whatever, when you're getting started, there's always stuff that pops up. And what we found one day is at the beginning, we always clean. We always put everything out, the chocolates on the pillows and signed cards for them and the air conditioner on, all the lights on, everything really nice when they showed up. And one day I left Augusta and I went over to clean one of the units because we had another guest coming. And I get over there and he shows up. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I came to clean. And so I was kind of mad at him, and he was kind of mad at me that I got mad at him because he was there cleaning. And of course, my attitude was like, you're not supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing important things. You gave me the job of managing this and cleaning this so we can make revenue from these guests and learn the whole Airbnb process, which we were learning for the franchisees so we could show them how that worked. And then he was like, I think it is, he said, we're not trying to be jerks. We're not trying to get mad at each other. But he said, I think that at the beginning of new things that we do, we trip over each other for a while. His whole reason for coming to clean was he didn't want me to have to leave the office. And he knew I would be trying to juggle everything at the office and come back and clean and get the unit all ready. So he knew it would be hard for me. And so he was just trying to help me, and we were tripping over each other, trying to help each other. So every new business venture that we've done, until we find our roles and our places, are a little bit bumpy. But as a business goes along, it just transitions constantly. Our business has changed so fast, And we're very grateful. Like we would be bored if it was status quo, just the same. And we're always growing new software, new processes, new systems. And if something doesn't work, we pivot and we go a different direction. A little bit about what I'm doing now is I'm running the command center. And that is where we're kind of like the office staff for the franchisees. So at Command, we are basically your office manager. So it's so that the franchisee doesn't have to buy a building, doesn't have to hire people. So if a franchisee, if you hired office staff, let's say one person, you've got to train them. You've got to teach them your software. You got to tell them how to talk to people on the phone, how you do your emails, and hand all that off to them. And then you go out and work in the field. And then you've got these calls coming from them on how to do stuff, and calls from customers if you don't have really good systems down. And then at the end of the season, which our jobs in the landscape industry are pretty seasonal. And as soon as that's over, you don't have anything for them to do. So if you want to keep that person, you've got to pay them all through the winter. Well, most of you wouldn't. So you say, I'll give you a call back in the spring. So nobody's going to wait around for the winter. So you basically lost them. So in the spring, you'd have to hire somebody else and do the whole process over again. And it's completely frustrating. So what we offer to them, and they don't have to use any of it, what we offer to the franchisee is we can take on all of those tasks. It's an a la carte menu. So we can take your email, your payroll, your P4P calculations, your QuickBooks, your phone calls, collections calls. There's just a ton of stuff that we can do for our franchisees. And it is as they want it. So they can switch up their services. If it's a slower time of year, like say in December, and they want to take back, say, their emails, then they can have the emails. And then when it starts to get busy and they can't handle it very much, then they get it back to us. Over the phone estimates, measuring properties, they might want to do it in the winter themselves and just go do bids. But when they get completely swamped in the spring, you don't want to lose business by turning off your marketing. You don't want to lose business by turning people away. Please don't do that ever. That's something that Mike and I really butted heads on until I really got it. Was if you're organically getting by word of mouth or some other way, getting people calling and asking for services, it's kind of like a doctor saying, if you call a doctor and you say, are you still taking new patients? Are you taking new patients? And they'll say yes or no. They are nuts to say no, because if they brought you on, you now have them, good care for them, all their kids, their parents, and you have them for the entire life of those patients. And so it's the same with customers. When you're busy and overwhelmed, the worst thing you can do is to tell people you're no longer available for new customers. Get them in there. Just say you're really swamped and you're booked out 6 weeks. And then they'll think, whoa, they must be pretty good if they're booked out that long, and then they're willing to wait for you. But I would highly recommend that you always just keep the stuff rolling in. So where I went off on a tangent. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it might come back to me in a minute. So there's tons we have done together. Long way we have come. Oh, I was talking to you about Command Center. So some people will take the OTP, over the phone estimates. They'll take that back. Or when they're really swamped. Oh, that's why I got onto that tangent. When they're really swamped and they don't want to stop taking new customers, which they shouldn't, we can do over the phone estimates and sell the Mo's for them. And so when they're really busy, they can just say, I don't have time to drive these estimates. Can you guys do OTPs? And so then we take over doing that for them for the period of time that they're busy. So the awesome part is they only pay for what they use, because we charge by the minute. So if they're strapped on cash, they can just take, and they're not too busy, they can just take most of the tasks and do them themselves. And then when they get too busy, and let's say they just don't like doing QuickBooks, or they don't really understand payroll or P4P really well. And so they'll give that to us. And then stuff that they are more familiar with, we do credit card checks to make sure with the credit card process, when customers pay, that the money actually comes through and hits the franchisee's account. So we call that the credit processor credit check, card processing check. And we do that every month. So we make sure all their payments have come in. as many as possible. And then we do this check in the middle of the month and make sure they got all of their money. And that has saved them a ton of money, because sometimes there's little anomalies or mistakes in the customer's account. And maybe it was marked check, but they had a card on file and the card was charged and said paid, but it really was marked as check. Those are the kind of things that you don't have time to do. Franchisees don't have time to do. When you're busy, when it was just Mike and I never, ever had time to do follow-up calls. And can you imagine how many jobs we probably missed out on because neither of us had time to do follow-up calls? And then we get to collections, or time to go out back and try to get some of the money that we had recouped, some of all the money for all the work we had done. And by then, people are definitely not going to pay you because it's been 6 months. And so we learned a lot, especially in that first year. You know, nobody's going to pay you after a year. But we were so swamped and trying to just handle the massive amount of business that was coming our way that we didn't do that. So now we have systems in place, automations that actually remind us that so-and-so, the very next day after an estimate goes out, we get a notification to check with so-and-so. They get automations to check with them. But then before we actually mark the estimate loss that nobody purchased it or went for it, we mark it lost. But if they're going to accept it, a lot of times it's depending on us just following up and talking to them. So that was really important for us and really helps the franchisees out as well. So there's a ton more I could tell you. You got to see Liz, interview Liz today, got to see my little house. And another funny thing that people ask about is all the Mike-isms. You all know that he always goes, "Let's go." And he says other things. And so what we've realized over time is that a Mike-ism? Is that a Liz-ism? And all of us say different things. So he started saying, I think it was him, he would say 100%, 100%. And then we hired Zach, and Zach would say the same thing, but he would go 100%. And it was just the just different people, different ways of saying things. And we all have our little isms. So I started saying, oh, it's a beautiful thing when I was talking about automations. And then I heard Lee training the franchisees, and I heard him talking about it's a beautiful thing. I'm like, what are you doing? You're taking my line. And then I was like, but maybe it wasn't mine. Maybe Mike said it. And so it's kind of fun. Brings to mind that quote that says the 5 people that you hang around most, that you're like them, most like them. And so I try to hang around some awesome people, and I do. So all the isms we get from each other are pretty funny, and not bad ones. So they're fun so Mike, every day, he talks with the franchisees. Benefit of being a franchisee. Every day there's a Mike mastermind, Mike minutes, we call them. And the franchisees can write in questions every day. And he pops on in the morning, answers all their questions, gives any announcements, and then on our way. So every day I was teasing him about it, because we were just working along, and I said to him, "Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing super well." And then I paused, and he starts laughing, and I'm like, "That's what you say every day." And he didn't realize that he goes, "Well, that is what I say." And he goes, "But now that you say it, it sounds kind of funny." I'm like, "It's awesome. But every morning you say, 'Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing super well.'" And he says it just like that. So we had a good laugh about that. And those are the kind of things we'll always remember. Always looking at the good and the fun things that are in the midst of all this work. And maybe next time I'll share with some transitions don't want to ramble too long for you, but transitions in Augusta. And so that you can just know transitions in your role, how you transition out of things and into other things, and how do you prepare people for roles that you're currently in so you can move on to other things. And I'll tell you more about that later. So love you all. It's great to talk to you, and I hope you have an amazing week.